Good afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Blake Mathews here. It is class number 6, and today we are going to be discussing weather safety. Of course, living in southeast Texas, we are prone to a wide range of severe weather, from severe thunderstorms to tornadoes, hurricanes, tropical storms, and every once in a while, we get ice and snow to move through the area. And one of the things that you're going to see many times throughout the year living here is going to be either a watch or a warning of some kind, whether it's a tropical storm watch, a hurricane watch, a tornado watch, a severe thunderstorm watch, a winter storm watch. We've had all of them issued here across southeast Texas over the years. And that's pretty fundamental because you're going to see it again a lot. We are prone to many severe weather events here in southeast Texas. So the first one we want to talk about here is what exactly is a watch. When something is issued, you have a tornado watch, a severe thunderstorm watch. And that means conditions are favorable for development. We are watching for the possibility of something developing. So in this case, if it's a tornado watch, it means conditions are favorable for tornadic development. If there is a hurricane watch, that means that we are dealing with the possibility of hurricane conditions within 48 hours. It's not guaranteed, but it is certainly possible. Now, the next step is going to be a warning, and that means that conditions are imminent. A tornado is on the ground or in the process of forming, or hurricane conditions are expected, not possible, but expected within 24 hours. Winter storm warning, basically the same thing. Winter weather conditions are expected to disrupt travel here in the Houston area. So anytime that you see a warning, that is your clue to take action. So we're talking about finding shelter, seeking shelter in a severe thunderstorm warning, a hurricane warning, a tornado warning. That warning means it is imminent and about to occur. So you're going to want to know the difference between what a watch and a warning is. Remember, a watch, we are watching, and a warning means that we are expected to see those conditions very soon. Now, the first thing that we really run into here is going to be tornadoes. And if we take a look at the Fujita scale, EF0 to EF5, EF0 being the weakest, EF5 the strongest, light damage in an EF0, EF1 a little bit stronger. EF2, now I want you to pay attention to the pictures, and one of the things that I want you to notice is the amount of damage done to the structure. So this is EF2, notice some of the roof damage there. EF3, a lot more damage, but the walls are still standing. EF4, this is only one from the top. This is 166 to 200 miles an hour. You can see, look at that, walls are still standing on the interior part of the structure. Not the outside walls, but the interior. And of course, EF5 is incredible damage, meaning we are seeing complete removal of all walls and all structures from their foundations. So the reason why I point that out is because we normally don't see very strong tornadoes here, EF0, EF1. So the best place that you can be when a tornado warning is issued, remember, warning means it is imminent, you're going to want to find the most center part of the house. Now here in Houston, we don't necessarily have basements, the water table far too high for that, but the next best place is going to be to find a place that is the most interior spot in the house. Now in this particular case, you're going to want to find a room with no windows. A good place would be maybe an interior closet or an interior bathroom, again in the center of the house with no windows. If you're in an apartment building or a high-rise, and we have many high-rises here in Houston, the best place to be is in the fire escape in the stairwell. Now, of course, in your everyday suburban home, again, here's a layout, a good example of a good place to be. If no basements are accessible, you're going to want to find the most interior room of the house. And in this case, you'll see that right there it looks like maybe a closet or a bathroom of some kind in the middle of the house with no windows. Of course, another thing that you're going to want to do is maybe find a bike helmet or a motorcycle helmet to protect your head from flying debris and stay as low to the ground as possible. Now, the reason why I showed you those pictures of all the tornado damage is to illustrate to you that even in a dire situation, when we're looking at an EF4 tornado, we're talking winds upwards of 200 miles an hour, many interior walls still stand. So it is very likely that you will be okay in the most center part of your house. Now, we've never had an F5 or an EF5 tornado in southeast Texas, The closest we came was Gerald, Texas, north of Austin, back in 1997. So no EF5s ever documented here. It's not to say that it couldn't happen, but the likelihood of that is extremely, extremely rare. So let's take a look at the next thing that we have to deal with often, and that is hurricanes and tropical storms. The first thing you're going to want to do, as we are now just 68 days away from the start of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, expected to be busy, thanks in part to neutral conditions of the Atlantic, meaning that we are not looking at El Nino conditions, which would normally suppress tropical activity in the Atlantic. However, we are looking at neutral and or La Nina, which has the opposite effect, and that is a busier hurricane season. So right now, 68 days away from the start of the season, know your evacuation zones. Know where you would go if an evacuation order is issued. The number one reason we evacuate is not because of wind, but because of the storm surge threat here along the upper Texas coast. So here's a good example of the evacuation zones. This is the latest and greatest information that we have. Notice that Southeast Texas is divided up into 4 zones. We've got the coastal zone in pink, zone A in yellow, which is going to be right around Galveston Bay, zone B, which includes central Brazoria, little portion there of Galveston County, Southeast Harris County, and central and northern Chambers County. And then, of course, we've got Zone C, which would be issued in the event of a catastrophic event, Category 4 or 5. This zone was last called in 2005 when Category 5 Hurricane Rita was on final approach to the Texas coast. Of course, you remember that, a huge evacuation. All 4 zones were called to evacuate, and of course, many other people across Harris County, Montgomery County, and Fort Bend County also evacuated, which caused tremendous havoc on the freeways and tremendous travel times to Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. So I want to zoom in just a little bit here. And if you give me just 1 second here to play with the KML file. There it is. So I'll show you, we're going to uncheck them all, we're going to turn them off, and what's really cool here at KHOU is that we're able to show you exactly which zip zones are which, and when they are called, we're able to highlight them right away. So for example, this is a coastal zone. This includes Brazosport. This is zip code 77541. So if an evacuation was called, of course, one by one, we're going to be able to show you here on our maps exactly where that zip code is and what cities are included in that. Again, this is exclusive to KHOU. I put this together about a year ago. Thankfully, we haven't had to use it yet, and hopefully we never will. But as you know, living in Southeast Texas long enough, it is a matter of when Okay. All right, let's relaunch. So I guess we're live. Okay. All right, sorry about that, guys. We had a little connection issue there, but I'm going to pick up exactly where I left off this afternoon, and that is we're talking about tornado safety and hurricane safety and the best way to prepare as we get ready to kick off the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. So as I was saying before, thanks a lot for staying with us. This is exclusive to KHOU here. This is a map that we put together about a year and a half ago, and it's not a map, we've never had to use it, but of course, as you know, it's not a matter of if we will have to use it, it is when we will have to use it. And what's really cool, and I'll go ahead and show you, I'll turn them all on at the same time. These are a look at the evacuation zones as we get into a closer look here of Southeast Texas. You'll notice, first off, we've got a lot of people that live in the inland areas. So if you're watching from Katy, you're watching from Sienna Plantation, Sugar Land, Stafford, Missouri City, Needville, Cypress, Jersey Village, Spring, Tomball, Magnolia, the Woodlands, Conroe, Kingwood, anywhere basically west and northwest of downtown Houston, this does not apply to you even in a worst case scenario. However, those of you living in the coastal zones, which does include our coastal counties, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with this, and if an evacuation is ever called, you'll know exactly where to go and what you'll need to do. So I'm going to uncheck them all, and what's really cool is that we have broken down all the zip codes. So this will tell us exactly which area is supposed to evacuate and what cities will be included in that order. So for example here, we'll turn on, this is 77486, and this includes northwest Missouri County, just around the Sweeney area and west of Angleton. This is going to be in zip zone C, and we've to my knowledge, I've lived here most of my life, we've only had Zip Zone C issued one time, and that was back during Hurricane Rita in 2005. Of course, if you remember, back then we had a tremendously strong hurricane in the Gulf. Hurricane Rita was Category 5, and if you remember, it was headed right for Houston. I mean, dead on, causing a tremendous evacuation. And to my knowledge, that is the only time Zip Zone C has ever been called to evacuate. But nonetheless, these are the zones that will be called if and when we have a hurricane headed our way. And what's really cool is we're able to see exactly what zones, where the zones are, what zip codes are being called, and we're able to show you that on a map, which again is exclusive to KHOU. We're the only ones that have this ability to show you exactly what zip codes are what. So just a little example there. Let me zoom on into Southeast Harris County. You have to excuse me, I'm trying to work with my iPhone or my laptop here without a mouse, so it's a little difficult to maneuver this. So here's a good example of some of the zip codes that we're able to turn on and off, and they are color coded. So we're going to be a really good source for you if and when a hurricane is ever headed our way. We're going to be able to show you exactly what zip codes are called to evacuate, where they are, and what zip zone they are located in. So if you're going to live in Houston, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with evacuation routes and when to evacuate. Now it's important to note a couple of things. First off, if you live in the inland areas, if you live in West Harris County, you live in Montgomery County or Northeast Harris County out near Kingwood, or maybe you live in Sugar Land or Missouri City and Stafford, or maybe you live in the Galleria area, wind is certainly going to be very scary, especially if we have a strong Category 4 or 5 hurricane target the Houston area. Yes, the amount of destruction that we would see would be immense caused by strong winds. We're talking winds easily sustained at 100, 115 miles an hour with gusts much higher than that. But wind is not the killer. It's the water that will get you. And remember that, as we say, you're going to want to hide from the wind and run from the water. So that's why all the evacuation zones that we have here in Southeast Texas are targeted for the coastal counties. It's because that's where the storm surge will be the worst, and that's where people are most likely to drown, and that's where people are most likely to die. So that's the reason why we have the zip zones issued basically for the coastal counties. And there they are there, a closer look. Galveston, basically almost all the way to downtown Houston. So if you're there along the Gulf Freeway, say you live in Clear Lake or you live in Webster, or maybe League City, San Leon, Santa Fe, Texas City, all the way into Danbury and Angleton and Pasadena, you guys are included in these zip zones. So if you're going to live in Houston, again, familiarize yourself with these zones. So that's one of the things that you're going to want to know. So we've talked tornado safety, we've talked hurricane safety. The other thing is, as the weather begins to warm up a little bit, we're also have a risk of rip currents if you're going to be down on Galveston Island. So what is a rip current exactly? Well, a rip current is basically a stream of water that finds itself, that accelerates between two sandbars. So you have sandbars that are located under the water offshore, and as the water is funneled through the sandbars, it speeds up and pushes on shore. Well, guess what? As that water pushes on shore, what happens? That water rushes back out, right? And it rushes right back through that same channel, and it will take you with it. So that's why when you try to swim your heart out trying to get back to the shore, a lot of people run out of energy and they eventually find themselves in deep trouble as the water continues to pull them out to sea. So what's the best thing to do if you find yourself caught in a rip current? The best thing to do is don't panic. If anything, let the water take you. Do not fight it, because you cannot outswim a rip current, especially if you are swimming in parallel to the rip current itself. The best thing to do is to swim perpendicular to the rip current. What's that mean? Well, it means swim parallel to the beach. Don't swim back to the beach, swim parallel to the beach, and that will get you out of the rip current pretty quickly. But again, if you try to fight the rip current and swim directly back to shore, you're not going to overpower the rip current. You're going to find yourself in dire straits very quickly. You're going to be out of energy, out of breath, and that's when people find themselves in deep trouble. So if you're going to be in Galveston this summer, of course, that's a favorite vacation spot here locally. Just be mindful of that. Try not to swim near jetties. Jetties are often a spot where you find strong rip currents. And again, if you do find yourself in one, the best thing to do, A, don't panic. B, let the rip current take you. The rip current will eventually dissipate just a few tens of yards away from the beach. So just don't panic, let it take you, and if you need to get out of course you do, swim perpendicular to the rip current and parallel to the beach. So parallel to the beach is going to be the best way to get you out of that rip current. The other thing that we want to talk about here really quickly, of course, is lightning safety. As we get into the height of summer, we see lots and lots of thunderstorms. And unfortunately, every year people die by getting struck by lightning. So when you hear thunder roar, go indoors. Now the reason why we say that, because if you can hear the thunder, you're strong enough, or you're close enough to be hit by lightning. Thunder is a direct relation to lightning. You cannot have thunder without lightning. They occur simultaneously. In fact, it is the lightning bolt itself that causes the sound of thunder. And you say, well, how does that happen? Well, lightning is extremely hot, extremely hot. In fact, it's about 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. The surface of the sun being about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, lightning is about 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So when you have a discharge of electricity that we see in a lightning bolt, what happens to the air around it? It superheats, and it superheats rapidly. And that expansion of the air, because when you heat something up, it expands, and that rapid expansion of air is what causes a concussion. It breaks the sound barrier. And that sonic boom is what we hear as thunder. So you cannot have thunder without lightning. They occur simultaneously, all because lightning is extremely hot. It superheats the air. Superheating that air rapidly causes a concussion sound. And that's when you hear the sound of thunder. So just be mindful when you hear thunder roar, go indoors. If you are caught outside, if you're on a playground, perhaps on a soccer field, or somewhere where you cannot seek shelter, the best thing to do is get away from anything that is tall. Do not stand under a tree. Don't stand under a light pole or anything that's going to cause that could cause lightning to hit near you. Remember, lightning is very lazy. It finds the easiest, quickest way to the ground. And oftentimes it finds its path through a tall tree, it finds itself through a light pole, it finds itself through some kind of antenna, and yes, even golf clubs and umbrellas. So when you're holding up an umbrella, that you are asking for trouble. So do not do that. The best thing to do, crouch down on the ground if you can't find safety within a sturdy building or in a car, which by the way is point number 3. A car is going to be the safest place to be when it comes to lightning. You're going to want to crouch down and stay as low to the ground as possible if indeed you are caught in a thunderstorm out in the outdoors. So again, when thunder roars, go indoors, crouch down to the ground if you can't find yourself inside a building, and a car is going to be the absolute safest place to be. So we'll go ahead and rewind through this one more time for those of you just joining us. If you live in Southeast Texas, or if you live anywhere across the United States, you're going to want to know these two terms. If you don't remember anything else I tell you today, you're going to want to know the difference between a watch and a warning. Remember, a watch, whether it's a severe thunderstorm watch, a tornado watch, a hurricane watch, a winter storm watch, it means conditions are favorable. It means we are watching out for the possibility of something happening. If a warning is issued, that means it is imminent or already occurring, and that is a dire advisory from the Weather Service there, and that means it is time to seek shelter and put your action plan in place. So a warning means it is imminent and or occurring, and a watch means we are just watching for the possibility that it could occur, that conditions are favorable for development. All right, so let's talk tornadoes here just a second. Of course, tornado watches are very common here in our part of the country. I wanted to walk you through what the damage looks like with each tornado, and there's a reason why I'm showing you this. So first off, EF0, very cosmetic damage. You see some siding torn off on this house, maybe a few shingles, but all in all, not too bad. EF1, oftentimes a little bit more, maybe a little more roof damage, a little bit more siding pulled off. EF2, that's when you start losing the decking on your roof, windows blown in, and the damage is a little bit more extreme. EF3, now we're talking severe damage. We're talking entire roofs pulled off of houses, windows blown in. Obviously, you can see there quite a bit of damage in the front yard. EF4, now we're talking about complete removal of the outside walls, but you'll notice one thing about this picture, and that is the interior walls are still standing. That's important, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. So again, that's EF4, winds of 166 to 200 miles per hour. And of course, EF5 is incredible damage. We're talking about complete removal of all walls and complete removal of homes from their foundations. Thankfully, we have never ever seen or recorded an EF5 tornado in our part of Texas. It's not to say that it couldn't happen, it's just they are exceedingly rare, and one has never been documented in the Houston area. The closest we ever came, of course, was Channelview back in 1992. I spoke about this a few days ago in another lesson we were talking about. EF4 is the strongest we've ever seen, and that's important because let me go back here and we'll show you what EF4 damage is once again. So EF4, we're talking about the complete removal of outside walls, just interior walls left standing. And the reason why I'm showing you that is because we are talking about where would you hide in the event of a tornado. Now, the best place to be, since we do not have basements in the Houston area because the water table is far too high, the best place to be, of course, is going to be in an interior room. So let me see if I can show you that here just a second. Computer's giving me a little bit of a hassle. So here you go. We're talking about, again, the best place to be obviously is in a basement, but we don't have basements here. So the next best place that you're going to want to be is in the interior part of your home, away from windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside of your home as possible. The other best thing to do is to put on a helmet of some kind, whether it's a bike helmet or a motorcycle helmet to prepare and to keep your head safe from flying debris. So in this particular case, you're going to want to cover yourself, stay away from windows, and you can see in the interior part. Now, if you're in a high-rise building and or an apartment complex, you're going to want to get in the fire escape because that is going to be a very safe place as well. For most suburban homes, again, here's a look. We're talking about, once again, same song, different dance, in the interior room, in a bathroom or a hall closet, and put as many walls between you and the outside of your house as possible. That's going to be the best place to be given a tornado. Now, the reason why I showed you the EF4 damage is because that is the strongest tornado ever observed in southeast Texas. It's only happened one time. So the more walls you put between you and the outside of your home, the better likely, or the more likely it is that you're going to survive anything that heads our way. EF2s, EF3s, yes, you'd have a lot of roof damage, windows blown in, but you will survive given the strength tornadoes that we see here, which are normally EF0 and EF1. We have a few EF2 and EF3s, and again, only one EF4. The other thing that, again, as we were talking about hurricane protocol, know your evacuation route, especially those of you living in Galveston, Chambers, Brazoria, and Matagorda counties. Those are the counties that are going to be most impacted from storm surge and wind. Those of you living north of I-10 or out in West Harris County or Fort Bend County, it is strictly a wind issue for us living north of I-10. So yes, we would have very scary weather. It'd be frightening if you were here for Hurricane Ike or if you were here for Hurricane Alicia. Yes, it is very, very frightening to see winds that strong push through the Houston area, but you survive it. What you can't survive is when the water finds its way into your home through a storm surge, and then at the height of a hurricane, you can't escape, and that's when a lot of people find themselves in deep trouble. So here's a look at the hurricane zones across the Houston area. We've got 4 evacuation zones. We've got coastal, we've got zone A, B, and C, and that takes us up almost into the downtown Houston area. To my knowledge, we've only issued 1 evacuation order for zone C. That was back in 2005 during Hurricane Rita. At the time was Category 5 and headed straight for Houston. Most of the time you'll see zip zones A and B along with the coastal zones issued, and of course for any strong hurricanes it would be zone C as well. Again, speaking of being down near the coast, oftentimes we see a lot of rip currents, and you're going to want to familiarize yourself with rip currents. The best way to escape a rip current is to swim parallel to the beach. Do not fight the rip current. Let it take you until the rip current abates, and then you can swim perpendicular to the rip current, parallel to the beach, and that would be the best way to get you out of that situation. And as we were talking about just a little while ago, as far as lightning safety, when thunder roars, go indoors. If you're outside, crouch down away from trees and tall objects. Do not hold golf clubs or umbrellas, because that's going to be a way to attract lightning, and find yourself to a car as quickly as possible. A car is going to be the safest place to be. So I hope you learned something on this weather lesson, keeping you safe. We're going to continue to do that, obviously, throughout the year as situations arise. But I just wanted to do a quick little reminder here as to the different threats that we face across southeast Texas and how to best prepare for them. Now, coming up the rest of the week, you're going to have meteorologists Addison Green and or Erica Lopez. They are going to be doing the next couple of weather lessons. I believe they're going to be talking about planets and space and what aurora borealis are, the northern lights, and then of course we're going to be doing some reading time as well as helping to make the forecast with us. So we're going to ask that you join in later in the week, and you can help either meteorologist Addison Green or Erica Lopez make the forecast for the day. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the day, and of course have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you coming up this weekend.